Rosa and this is Johnny. And we just completed our van build, which of the van that you will see right behind us. It's a 2023 Ram ProMaster 3500 extended cab. And we documented pretty much the entire process. And we wanted to create this van series to share with everyone in case it might help somebody out.
Yeah, so let's start by saying that this is by no means a how to build a van video or video series. This is a step-by-step of how we built ours, the steps that we took to build our van.
Yeah, and during our research phase, we watched countless YouTube videos on van builds. And while, there were a few that weren't maybe what we wanted our design to be or the type of van that we ended up buying, we still pulled something from each video that helped us with the design that we settled on. And if someone can take a piece from the videos that we make, then it's all worth it to us.
As the old saying goes, there's always more than one way to skin a cat. And there's definitely more than one way to skin a van, to build a van. There's more than one way to build a van, all right? Nothing is set in stone when you build a van. The only thing that is set in stone is that you should do plenty of research, do your own due diligence so that you can build your van safely. That's the number one priority, that's it. So I do have some experience. I am a custom carpenter by trade, and I was lucky enough to have a workshop to build this van out of. I have built out a few vans over the past few years. The vans would normally come to me pre-wired. I would ask that they be pre-wired because I'm not an electrician. But I would do everything from, the subfloor, the insulation, the paneling, the cabinets, everything like that, just not the plumbing or the wiring. So that would be new to me in this van build. But in terms of, the build and the carpentry, I might be able to offer some fresh perspectives on different ways to do that.
Taking it back to the beginning, you have to decide what rig you want to get. We ultimately ended up with the ProMaster for just a few key points, one of them being affordability, and the second one being bed placement. We really wanted to be able to put our bed in there sideways or perpendicular without having to create those pop-outs. So the ProMaster allowed us to do that. So that's why we chose it. Plus we like the way it looks.
Yeah, and I've always driven Ram trucks, so I'm partial to Ram. But ultimately, yeah, the price point and being able to sleep sideways. I think we've got the van comes with 6'3" or 6'4".
And we're both under 6 foot, so
yeah,
it's fine.
Way under. Yeah, so let's get into the van build steps that we took. So first of all, if you know at all what kind of van you're getting, you should go ahead and draw yourself out a detailed plan with dimensions of where you want your bed. Do you want a bed? Obviously you want a bed. Surely you should want a bed. But do you want a fixed bed? Do you want a bed that you can make into a dining space and sitting space? Do you want a bed that does this? One of those beds? Decide what you want. Do you want a shower in your van? Do you want where do you want your windows? What kind of windows do you want? What storage? Where do you want your storage? You're going to have underbench storage. Figure all this out. You can buy the van and then figure it out, but you don't have to have the van to start laying out the groundwork to build your van. Yeah. So once you got your plan figured out, and before we go any further, if you don't have the van, you can go online and you can get the interior, exterior dimensions of any van online without having the van there. So you can take those measurements and draw out your own plan. So once you have your plan done, go ahead and start ordering the stuff. Order your puck lights, order your pre-wiring stuff, order your windows, order your appliances, order specialty wood, whatever it is. Just start ordering stuff.
Yeah, because in our experience, things took a long time. Even the van took a long time, so we had to wait close to a year to receive our van. So we used that time to do a lot of the prep work and ordering, research, like Johnny said, our appliances, the wood, any kind of specialty items we wanted for the van. we went ahead and ordered it because it does take a long time.
Yeah, it can take. Some stuff comes quickly, some stuff takes weeks.
Yeah.
And we were in a time crunch.
With that being said, do whatever works for you. You don't have to order everything all at once. You can order things in phases, whatever your financial situation allows for.
So let's get into the physical steps. Once you've laid out your plan and you've got everything organized and you know what you're going to do, the first thing that we did is we started with sound deadening.
Insert footage.
So we use kiln mat that we ordered from Amazon, and we try to cover about 40% of our van with it. This stuff definitely helps keep the road noise down and helps to keep outside noise outside. We didn't order the tool, the rolly tool with it. We ended up just using the shop wheel, and it seemed to work pretty well.
What are you doing, honey?
Finishing the sound deadening kill mat.
Cool beans, bro. So here we have our sound deadening finished up. This is the first part of our van build. The very beginning. There's Jerry Biscuits. Come on, Diddy! Can you get up, Jerry? Come on. We left out the parts where our windows are going. Right here. And right here. And right now we're having a pint to celebrate the start of our van adventure, our van build.
On to the next step after that, insulation. So let's talk about insulation. Insulation can be a pain in the ass. There's so much information online, there's so many options, so much conflicting information, but I will save you some trouble right off the bat. If you can afford it, go do spray foam insulation. You can buy kits of it. It's pretty pricey. You can buy kits and you can spray foam the whole inside of your van. And in terms of R value, moisture, and ease of installation, it sits a level above the rest, in my opinion. Now, it was a little too pricey for us. We ended up going with polyiso, 2-inch polyiso R-Max insulation. I believe the brand is Sika, and it offers an R value of 13.1 for 2 inches. And we used 2 inches on the ceiling, 2 inches on the wall panels, and then we used 1 inch on the door panels. And we sealed around the edges with spray insulation, the cans you can buy at Home Depot. A lot of you might be wondering, well, all 6 years at this stage, might be wondering why we didn't use Havelock wool. And while it is a good product, I'm not going to knock it. There's a few reasons why we didn't. Number one was we were in a bit of a time crunch, and I think it was going to take like 6 weeks to get to us. And number two was the R value is good if you layer it up. You know, a lot of people just put, maybe 1 bat thick along the wall, because it only has per bat per inch, it only has something like 3.6 R value. So to really get the right R value, you really have to, stack it up thick on the wall. And to achieve 13.1, what we have, you'd have to do, like 4 layers thick, which is a lot of work. And if you don't install it correctly, I've seen people use like fishing wire to hold it up there. I've seen people use spray adhesive. If you don't install it correctly, it can end up falling down behind your walls, and you wouldn't know. You just know that in colder climates the van is cold, and you're wondering why. You got all this nice sheep's wool in there. It can fall down if it's not installed correctly, and the only way that you'd ever find out is if you got like a heat camera to see. So we were going to go down that route, and there's also a study online. I'm going to try and link it in the video. A guy did like a test. He got like Havelock wool, polyiso, the Thinsulate, the 3M Thinsulate, and I think a couple other ones. And he made like a box, a plexiglass box, and he put heat and moisture in there, and you can see on the back of the plexiglass which one was collecting the most moisture and stuff like this. Really interesting, and I'll try and link it in there because that was ultimately what led us to doing the polyiso. That, and it was readily available to us at the time we were looking for insulation. So we used the polyiso, we cut the boards, we glued them onto the panels, and we sealed around the edges with spray insulation. Just be careful about using home insulations and stuff like that. Like, regular home insulation releases fiberglass. Some of them release toxins in the air that in a small environment like a van that's moving around a lot, it's not good. It can do your health harm. So enough jibba jabba. Let me show you how we did our insulation. So I started measuring for the insulation at the back wheel arches. And for this, I just measured a rectangle, and then I measured how far the wheel arch comes into the rectangle and how high it comes into the rectangle. And then I just joined the two lines together and freehanded the curve. I'm using a sawzall here to cut the insulation, but honestly, you could cut this stuff with any old handsaw you can get your hands on. It's really easy to cut. And there it is. And then repeat for the other side of the wheel arch, and so on and so forth. Man, it's a beautiful song, isn't it? I could listen to that music all day. And then the boss finally decides to show up to show me how it's done. All jokes aside, Rose is better than some of the guys that I've hired over the years, and we're really able to get a good system going here. So if you've got a helper or a partner that you can utilize, can really help things along. There are a lot of curves in a van, so I would cut the panels square, and then Rosa would mark the curves on them. I would go away and cut the curves, bring them back. She would have another one marked, and we'd swap out like this until we were done. Before we knew it, we had all the boards cut and we're ready to start gluing them up. But first,
lunchtime.
I have no idea what we're talking about here or why I'm putting this footage in here, but here we are. You should always have a beer with lunch though. Don't be such a dry arse. But just wait until you're finished using the cutting tools. Be sensible, like. Anyway, after lunch, it was time for us to glue up all our pre-cut boards. And we used an M3 spray adhesive that you can get from Home Depot. I'll try and leave all the links in the description. But with this stuff, we sprayed it on both surfaces, on the back of the board and on the van panel itself. Now you want to let this sit for about a minute before you stick them. Make sure you read the instructions. I didn't, and I had to go back after and re-glue a few pieces on because I didn't read the instructions. So make sure you read the instructions. When we got it figured out, Rosa held one panel while I moved on and sprayed the next. And we kept going like that. And so on and so forth. I have to apologize because we lost some of our footage from us doing the insulation on the ceiling. But one thing I will advise is the van, most vans on the top, they're slightly curved. So when you're putting the boards up on the ceiling, I would advise that you score the back of it with like a utility knife, go about an inch deep every 4 inches and just score a straight line across the width of it so that when you press it up, that line opens up and it'll contour to the van roof. So there are a lot of cavities on the inside structure of a van and you can't very well go shoving insulation foam down there. So I found this bag of Havelock wool for 20 bucks on Craigslist. And we stuffed it. When I tell you we stuffed it everywhere, we stuffed it everywhere.
You stuffed her like a Thanksgiving turkey!
Feels weird.
Smells like cheap ass.
Dude, what is this?
After the stuffing of the wool, it was on to our last step for the insulation, and that was the spray foam.
What are you doing?
And I love spray foam. To seal the insulation board, we went around all the edges with insulation foam, closing any gaps or voids around the board, sealing it in place. You might notice here that the subfloor is in already. Now, we didn't exactly do stuff in order, but for the purposes of this video, I'm going to put it in the order that makes sense the most. But ultimately, you can do it in whatever order you like, whatever order suits you. And the wood you see on the ceiling there, the sticks, they are pretending to be our finished shiplap, ensuring that we have a clear run when we go to put on our finished ceiling.
So here's our insulation. Stuffed all the cavities with sheep's wool. Sealed all the panels with spray foam. The sheep's wool in there.
After that, it was onto the floor insulation and subfloor. I primed up some 1x2 sticks that I had laying around the workshop with some mold and mildew resistant primer. Make sure you think about things like this because in a van you can have a lot of leaks and spillages, and if it gets under the subfloor it can rot out your subfloor. So use some mold and mildew resistant primer on your floor joists and the underside of your subfloor at least. I glued these down in a joist style fashion about every 12 inches or wherever the grooves in the van floor would allow it. And I used a urethane based subfloor adhesive. And I did end up using some buckets and old cans of paint to help weight down the wood while the glue set. Quickly here folks, I wouldn't recommend to use this insulation for your floor. This is Armat, I believe. We got it from Home Depot or Lowe's, one of the two, and basically it's like polystyrene. It doesn't offer very much R value, but it was what was available for us at the time. We were looking for 1/2 inch polyiso R Max or the 1/2 inch polyiso Pink Panther, but there was no 1/2 inch available in any of the stores around the Bay Area. So we had to just take what was available. And I thought, oh, it'd be okay anyway, because, you know, I thought that, you know, the insulation on the walls and the ceiling is what's most important, because heat rises and, you know, the sun beats on the side and on the ceiling. It doesn't, you know, necessarily come up through the floor. But I was wrong, because, you know, it does stay pretty toasty warm in there when we have the heater on. But we were in like 17 degrees weather up in South Dakota, and it was warm until you got like down to knee height, and it was just like a cold mist of air all along the floor, because we didn't have decent insulation on our flooring. So, you know, be aware that the subfloor, the insulation on the floor, can let in cold air, and it can also let in heat as well. So don't be a dum-dum like me and think you know something. Just put some good insulation on your floor. I wouldn't go too thick. I mean, I think an inch would be good. If I could go back again, I would use an inch or 3/4 if I could find that. But I'm also worried about ceiling height as well. So, you know, we've got 2 inches coming off the ceiling with the insulation. I didn't want too much build up on the floor, just so we could have as much headroom as possible. But anyway, carry on. We laid the insulation down nice and snug in between the joists, like so.
Screw the thing into the joist.
And then it's onto the subfloor. We used 1/2 inch plywood, and I was able to use the rubber mat that came with the van to transfer the van's footprint onto the plywood. You'll need about 3 sheets of 4x8 to complete the van. If you have an extended van, you can use the offcuts for the last little section at the end. And don't forget to prime at least the underside with mold and mildew primer. If you have time, do both sides. We didn't have time, we just did the underside, but if you can do both sides, then you're a better man or woman than me. I screwed the 1/2 inch plywood down with 1 inch screws into the joists.
Is our subfloor done? It's primed on the underside to help with any moisture or mold. There we go.
After the sound deadening, insulation, subfloor, it was now time to move on to the pre-wiring, or 12-volt pre-wiring. Now, we didn't get a lot of footage of this part, but I'll try and relay the information as best I can. First off, draw yourself out an electrical plan. Know where you want your lights, outlets, switch panels, and fixtures, and mark it all out in the van.
The side of our panel, where our cabinet's going to be, is going to have the panel switch on it. So there's a bunch of wires to go here. Need AC and DC outlet around here for the breakfast nook. Hook lights. And then AC and DC. One AC here. And then one DC here. So DC is 12 volt.
We use 12 gauge marine wire, and it's a good safe option for wiring DC in a van.
What are you doing there?
So this is our plan. I'm taping up so we can see our electrical layout plan that Johnny beautifully drew.
Yeah. See if we can make sense of it.
Yeah.
Alright then. Okay. Okay, so
Which one's positive? Which one's negative?
The red one is normally positive. Yeah, in this case, I'm pretty sure the red one is positive. Okay, so let's start.
Running the 12-volt wires is pretty easy. We just figured out where our 12-volt fuse panel was going to be, and we ran all our wires to where they needed to go, to all our fixtures and outlets and things like that.
Booklets.
I'll put
Just make sure you label each end of the wire, each end of every wire you run, so you know what it is later when you come to put your fixtures and stuff on. The 2-inch insulation on the ceiling didn't give me much room to run my wires, so I had to cut a track in it here to fit the wires and the puck lights in. Something to keep in mind if you use 2-inch insulation on the roof. We daisy chained our puck lights, but we just ran one long wire and looped the wire where our puck light was going to be. This was much easier than cutting a bunch of small wires and then joining them to the puck lights after. This gives you a good indication of where the puck lights will be and where to cut your holes in your finished ceiling for the puck lights. Also, folks, there's a lot of sharp corners in a van, so when you're running your wires, make sure you use some conduit on areas where there could be chafing. And we used this conduit, I'll link it. We bought it off Amazon. It's basically just a plastic case you can wrap your wires in, and we put it everywhere where there might be potential chafing, you know, in all the corners. It's also good to keep wires together. Just put it as and where you see fit, or you can run all your wiring through conduit if you want. It's up to you. We just did in the hazardous areas. You might be wondering where our pre-wiring is for the AC 110 volt. And it's not in this video. I actually added it a little bit later. And I just ran the wires. I haven't actually hooked it up yet. Reason being is because we haven't found need to use it. We plug all our AC appliances directly into the inverter. So we have a 110 volt fridge and we plug that directly into the inverter. We have a water heater that we plug directly into the inverter. Our AC unit plugs directly into the inverter. And so we don't really need it. And you know, with the 12 volt DC pre-wiring, we have some switch panels and some like cigarette lighter outlets, and those are good for, I mean, you can plug little inverters into those that you can then plug, you know, your coffee maker and stuff like that. And we really don't need it. I might hook it up down the line, but we'll just see how that goes. Well, that's all, folks, for our first van build episode. There should be at least 2 more coming. I hope they've been helpful to at least somebody. Please hit the like and subscribe button. Help us out on our van and YouTube journey. And that's all I got to say about that. Now go on, behave yourself, be good. Catch you in the next one.
lunchtime. No, I'm kidding.